we're back with The Walking Dead Season 2, Part 2. We cut right back to where, Rick had to lay out Sophia, and the group is devastated along with Hershel's family considering they thought all of them were alive still. Yeah, Beth, it's not too smart to go over to one when they're not dead. They are walkers. While all of Hershel's family's sad, Shane wants to go up to him and say that he knew that Sophia was in the farm the whole time. He says he didn't, and he wants everybody off of his land now. Rick and Shane argue some more, and let me tell you something. This season's gonna end in a crazy way. Rick and Andrea end up going back out to the dead bodies and figure out the best way to deal with them is to bury them. And since Hershel's seen all the massacre of his family, he goes inside to look at some pictures and finds a flask to do the old things he used to. Drink until he can't feel nothing. Wait, he also might be leaving? Wait, where's Hershel going, bro? He's like 80. Never mind, they just grouped up to have a funeral. Glenn and Maggie get to spill their feelings to each other since, they don't feel like they're gonna be seeing each other that long. While out of nowhere, her sister Beth collapses. They take her to a nearby room where Lori ends up asking what's wrong and where's Hershel at, and she says that Hershel's gone. Maggie does find that flask that he was drinking earlier, so Rick does know a nearby bar, so he's gonna go to it. Glenn says that he's going, but Maggie says that she doesn't want him getting hurt, but Rick tells her that he will bring him back safe. Does kind of start a fight between Lori and Shane, but Rick does tell her that Hershel is needed for the baby, so they gotta go get him. So everyone else is staying, Rick and Glenn are going. While on the road, Glenn ends up asking Rick if he thinks Maggie only wants him, or if she's only doing it with him because he's the only one there. Rick does hop Glenn up and does tell him that she only wants him because look how many other guys there are. I love this scene so much because Glenn's just always been a geeky nerd, so he's never really talked to a girl, so he's just asking Rick for advice. They eventually do make it to the bar, while Maggie and Lori and all the others are trying to make sure Beth's still stable. Lori goes to Daryl and says that Rick's been gone too long and she wants him to go to look for him. Daryl does say that's selfish and he's not doing that. Rick and Glenn finally find Hershel drinking at the bar. While at the house, nobody notices that Lori takes the whole entire car and a map to go looking for Rick. Too busy looking at the map, she ends up hitting a walker and flips the car. Reminder, she's pregnant. Back to Hershel and Rick, they end up getting into a heated argument about how Hershel says that Rick took everything. Rick tells him that he saved him from everything because he doesn't know the horrors of all the walkers in the world. Hershel says he wasn't being a, main character, so Rick says that he's here now. Things eventually do get settled, and as they're about to go home, they end up meeting two random people. Like, what are the odds of this? This dude is named Dave, and the one in the white shirt is named Tony. Apparently, these two are on their own, and they've been going state to state trying to find a place to live and still haven't. But even though these two play stupid and nice, you can tell what they really are. Before they came in, they seen that Rick's car isn't full of supplies, so they know they're not living in the car. So Dave, putting the puzzle pieces together, ends up asking if they have a place to stay. Eventually, as a group, they do say they have a barn, but at the moment it's too overcrowded, so they can't have anybody else. Tony starts to get mad, which starts to get our main character stinking. Maybe these two aren't being as truthful as they say. Dave does put his gun down though, so maybe he is good. Then once again he asks if he can stay, but Rick says no, so he tries to pull for his gun, but Rick kills them both. Well, there's Rick's first kills to start on his kill count. Then we cut to Shane and them burning the bodies, so we'll see what happens with Rick and the others next episode. And we're back with episode 2, starting with Lori, because remember, she crashed. Really didn't show anything else that episode, but a walker's trying to get into her door, so hopefully she wakes up and can take it out. Back with Rick, he ends up asking if Glenn and Hershel are alright after killing those people, and they say they're alright. As it's time for them to move out, of course, a car shows up because those people did lie, they had a group, and yeah, they're looking for Dave and Tony. Lori does end up finding a weapon and taking out the walker that was attacking her, and right after she squirms out of the car, she has to fight another one and takes it out. This is the first kills we've seen from Lori. As everybody's ready to eat, Shane ends up asking Carl where Lori went, but it looks like Andrea and Carl got different answers. Rick ends up looking out the window to see a couple guards outside. Eventually, Rick and them speak up and say that their friends ended up dying because they shot them first, and Rick says that this is just the wrong place, wrong time, which they don't take lightly, so we get into a shootout. Shane takes the car looking for Lori because he knows that she went looking for Rick, and he did find her broken down car along with the walkers that she left down the ground. Hershel ends up getting his first kill. Well, I guess it's kind of a assist kill because the walkers end up biting his flesh open. But when they try to make a run for it, Glenn ended up hiding behind the trash can and hasn't made a move since. So Rick comes out with his revolver and his shotgun looking at both sides looking for Glenn, knowing dang well if he shoots one of these it's gonna knock him back to freaking Mars. He does find Glenn and it looks like he just froze because he didn't want to die. It's okay, it happens, it's time to move. The place ends up getting overrun with walkers, so everybody's gotta dip. The people in the truck say he gotta jump right now to get in and leave. The kid tries to jump for the truck but ends up missing terribly. He ends up falling on something sharp, making him scream a terrible sound. While his friends just take off. Rick doesn't want to leave him like that, so they go check on him and see that his leg is completely stuck. While Glenn's trying to take out all these walkers, Rick does make a good theory. Let's just completely push his leg off of it and take him right now. Jane does get back home with Lori, finding her on the street, and apparently he told her that Rick was already home, but he's not. Yeah, she's not too happy about that. The next day, Rick, Glenn, and Hershel end up making it back, but not too long after that, T-Dog ends up pointing out that they got a survivor with them. Hershel ends up treating the kid's leg, but he's not going to be on his feet for a week, so somehow they're going to have to keep him here before he can get back to his group. And when Rick makes it to his room, he ends up thinking everything's going to be so sweet, until Lori starts telling Rick a little bit more about Shane, like how he definitely killed Otis for her and Carl. Shane even saying that Carl is his and the baby is his. No, we don't end there. He says that he can't take care of his family either. So, seeing the look on Rick's face, he's not going to be putting up with this. And we're back with episode 3 or episode 10 in the series. Cut to another future moment, Shane getting chased by a bunch of walkers as he's got beat up. Rick's not doing too well either because a bunch of walkers are coming out his window. Where are they? And I guess we get a first look at that kidnapped kid they had to take. But if they don't get to him soon, he will take off and tell his team where they are. So Shane has secured himself in a bus and we don't know where Rick is. Now we cut back to before any of that happened. Looks like Rick and Shane were on the road and Rick does tell Shane to get out of the car because they need to talk. Rick's basically like, stop the BS. I know what you've been saying to Lori. I don't care how you see anything. Lori's mine, the kid's mine, Carl's mine. Hopefully Shane will learn from this, right? Rick and Shane do open the trunk to see that they do still have the prisoner and they are taking him to a gated place, giving him some food and leaving him there. And Shane do find a gated place like earlier in the episode. There are walkers in there, but Rick does have an idea. They don't have to shoot every walker just because they want to. They can knife them. If you just stab it in the head, no sound, no nothing, no bullets used. They make it inside to see a lot of burnt bodies and a lot of dead corpses, meaning not too many people made it. Weirder thing is, Shane's seeing all these walkers, but some of them don't have scratches or bite marks. Maybe it's under their clothes though. They had to get bit somehow. So they fully clear the place out, get some supplies. Then Rick and Shane start walking off because they're gonna leave them. The kid begs for them to take him with him, but Rick throws the knife down so he can untie himself. Of course, the kid somehow went to school with Maggie, which I still don't understand how he knew about Maggie because they had to have been watching him. Rick says they're gonna take him back, but Shane says that they need to leave him. He makes a good point saying that the farm wouldn't be safe if they brought him back. Then, Shane being crazy pulls out his gun and about shoots him. Rick stops him and says that's not how we're doing this. Shane starts getting into a heated argument with Rick, and this is where it gets serious. Shane says Rick only does things when he's pushed to the test. Rick then goes on to say that he thinks he knows all the rules, but he doesn't. And that's when Shane says that Rick can't keep his family safe. Yeah, of course, this starts a fight, but Shane gets the first punch. He tries to take Rick's gun, but of course Rick knows how to fight too. Oh yeah, and you remember in the first part of the episode where the kid was trying to get the knife? Well, Rick eventually does beat the crap out of Shane, while Shane did get a couple hits on Rick. But while Rick's talking, Shane tries to throw a wrench at him, shattering a window behind Rick. Walkers start piling out of the window, and now we're here seeing Rick dealing with 3 different walkers on top of him as Shane's stuck in the bus. Rick and the kid end up meeting back up, and the kid says that they just need to go. So Shane watches from the back window as Rick and the kid take off. No, take that back. The kid's gonna drive the car while Rick shoots and gets Shane. Shane gets in and they take off. Man, is that kid not lucky he didn't get stuck there. He is still driving though, so Rick does make him stop the car and blindfold him, put him in the back again. Oh, they're blindfolding him back up though. Rick says to Shane that if he wants to kill him, he's gonna have to do a lot better than a wrench. And that Lori is his wife, Carl is his kid, and the newborn baby is also his kid. They do end up getting back on the road as we listen to a song as we see a lonely walker. Now this lonely walker symbolizes a lot of things, mostly meaning that the person's lonely and empty inside at the moment. And for now, it seems like it's symbolizing that Shane's lonely. And we're back to episode 11, starting with Daryl beating the crap out of that prisoner. The reason why is because he's trying to figure out how many people are in his camp and what they do. He does eventually tell Daryl that he just got put into the group one time and they are really bad people. Took a man from his daughter, took his daughter in front of him, and did very, very horrible things. But Daryl's not here to play. He better tell him all the answers he wants. Daryl goes back to the group and tells him that there's 30 men in his group, and they are not out here to make friends. With no other choice, it looks like Rick's ready to execute the kid. Dale speaks up though because he's the most humane. He says that they can't just shoot a kid that he literally saved and then just go on with it. Dale actually goes around and talks to a lot of people about this. Back to Shane and Andrea just watching the barn, they're just talking about the prisoner. Little do they know that Carl's in the barn literally talking to him. Almost even setting him free until Shane busts in the door and figures out he's in there, really pissing him off. Bro, Carl, is he really gonna take a gun again? Okay, Carl side mission. He goes out into the woods thinking that he's his dad, I guess. He does end up finding a walker, but its feet are stuck in the mud. And just remember this walker for later because it's gonna be important. Like, Carl, what are you really doing? I guess this is his first time seeing a walker without it actually attacking him. Then one of my favorite parts of the episode is when Glenn and Herschel actually get to talk. Herschel just asks where his parents are from and just all these nice questions. And Herschel's actually starting to care for Glenn, giving him one of the most important washes of the entire series. Now, the reason they haven't executed the kid yet is because they're making a decision at sunset to either kill him or not kill him. Rick's wanting to execute him along with Shane, and Dale's trying to get a bunch of people to get against them. Oh yeah, back with Carl, he ends up trying to shoot the walker, but it gets unstuck, so he runs away. The sun is setting, so it's decision time. Dale says that everybody's basically made up their minds, saying that only him and Glenn are the only ones thinking that they should keep him. but not even Glenn's on his side. Some people are thinking that they should just keep him but put him in chains, but Shane says if they keep him, he's gonna act all happy and sweet, and then he's gonna run to his gang and tell them exactly where they are. Dale says they can't expect that from him, and they can't just kill an innocent kid. Andrea does end up being the only one that stands up with Dale, but that's not enough, so that's it for that. When midnight hits, Rick, Shane, and Daryl end up taking the hostage to the barn. Shane blindfolds him as Rick gets ready to execute him, but last second Carl comes in and almost sees Rick execute a person, and he's not gonna do that in front of his kid. So they're gonna let the kids stay another night, which really takes Shane off. Dale ends up being outside thinking that they probably already killed the kids, so he's just going on a walk until he's found a deer that's got mangled by a walker. Oh yeah, and that walker I was telling you about that attacked Carl attacks Dale. Rick and everybody hears, but they're too far, so he's got to fight for his own. He does end up getting a good hold on the walker, but it starts ripping his guts out of his stomach. Daryl, being the closest, takes out the walker. It's too late now. Dale's guts are everywhere. Rick screams and calls for Herschel, asking if he can do anything, but he says he can't. Now this is the saddest episode of this season. Rick goes to execute Dale, but can't do it himself. Instead, Daryl takes the gun out of Rick's hand and says, "Sorry, brother," and shoots Dale. Yeah, this episode was an emotional roller coaster. And we're back to episode 12, start with the morning of Dale's death. Dale did say that the group was broken, that nobody works together, so now it's time for a change. Herschel makes the deal that Rick and all the others can move into the house now. Herschel's also gonna make a little survival base underground. Andrea ends up asking what they're gonna do with the kid, which his name is Randall, by the way. Rick says that Shane's gonna get people to take shifts watching Randall. Then Rick and Daryl will take him, and they're just gonna let him go. As everyone leaves, Carl has a talk with Shane, talking about how the walker that Dale died to is the one that he ended up finding in the mud, and maybe if he would have killed that walker, it wouldn't have been Dale dead. That's a lot of stress to put on a kid, but Shane says that he needs to keep the gun, but Carl, being too scared, doesn't take it, gives it back to Shane, and runs off. Afterwards, Shane and Lori get a good conversation together, since she finally opens up and tells him thank you for everything she's actually done for her and Carl. Even though Rick did come back, she did automatically just drop him and not talk to him at all, which made everything bad between Rick and Shane. And sadly, that's Shane's biggest downfall in this season, caring too much about Lori and Carl. Looks like Rick and Daryl are making plans, and I love seeing Daryl on the good side. Not necessarily that he was bad, he just always kept to himself. When Shane pops up, he goes to take a piss. Shane goes up to Rick and tells him that he needs to talk to Carl because everything about the walker. Right now, Rick's only worried about Randall. Shane thinks that's pathetic and gives him the gun that Carl gave him and says that he cares more about Randall than Carl. Rick eventually does go to Carl and talks to him and gives us a very important speech. He says that people are gonna die and you're just gonna have to be ready for it. He's gonna die, his mom's gonna die, it's gonna happen. Rick gives him the gun and says that he needs to protect himself because he's not going to be watching him every second. So Carl takes the gun and it looks like he's going to act very respectful with it. Shane, on the other hand, is going crackhead crazy, almost killing Randall. But he looks at him and then he thinks maybe he's got a better idea. T-Dog goes up to the barn that Randall was in, probably because it was his shift, to see that nobody's in there. Shane takes Randall out in the woods and then blindfolds him and says, yeah, you probably don't want to see my face. But he's going to let him go because he wants to join his group. And Randall could not be happier as he keeps yapping about how his group's just strong men, until off screen Shane snaps his neck. He then goes up to a tree, hits his face onto the tree so it looks like Randall knocked him out. Comes back to the farm seeing everyone freaking out, so he hides his gun to make sure it looks like Randall took it. That's when Shane comes out and says that he got attacked by Randall and that he's got his gun. So Rick tells everybody to get back in the house with T-Dog, while Rick, Daryl, Glenn, and Shane go out looking for him. Rick ends up asking Daryl if he sees any tracks. Daryl says he doesn't see anything, but Shane says they don't need to be looking for the tracks, they just need to both split up. Glenn and Daryl are going to go the right way, while Rick and Shane go the left. Oh yeah, and randomly back at the house, we just got Carl looking through the window to make sure his dad's not back yet. Alright, let's be honest, we all had to do this one day waiting for food. Daryl and Glenn keep going farther and keep seeing more signs that Shane looks like he did this to himself. They even find a zombified Randall. It does take them a second to take him down, but wait a second, he never got bit. For you to turn, you have to get bit by a walker. He only got his neck snapped. Daryl and Glenn need to find Rick and Shane now. But it's too late. Shane and Rick make it out to an open field. Rick already knows what Shane's been trying to do, so he tells him to just call it out what it is. Rick says, do you believe if you end up going back to that farm without me that they're actually going to believe you? And Shane says that he'll tell everybody that Randall shot him and then he found Randall and then twisted his neck. They got over Rick once, they can do it again. Shane tries to antagonize Rick, telling him about how he's a better father than him and how he loves Lori more. And as he ended up joining the crew, everything got destroyed. Rick doesn't care, he still goes to give Shane his gun. But as soon as he goes to look at Rick's gun, Rick stabs him and Shane's bullet goes the other way. Shane's bullet missed, but Rick's knife didn't. So not even minutes later, Shane chokes on his own blood. Kinda crazy we started with them two eating burgers, huh? Not even seconds later, Shane's having those flashbacks that Jim had turned him into a walker. And Rick, being confused on what he had to do, looks over to see Carl. Yeah, he's seen everything. And out of sadness, he raises his gun at Rick. He's actually raising his gun at Shane because he's a walker now. How? But that's not even the most important thing of this episode. You remember how we're not so far from Atlanta City? Well, those two gunshots were really loud in the middle of the night. And that farm would definitely not withstand like a couple walkers. So just imagine what this horde of walkers is gonna do for the finale. And we're back with the season finale starting out in Atlanta. And we haven't really been seeing the streets ever since everybody got out, but we see that the walkers are still piling up. They usually pile up more often when they hear a sound and they all just follow it. And if there isn't any other sounds, then they're just gonna keep going the same path that they've been going. You get the point. They followed the sound all the way to the farm. Well, actually they were gonna pass it up, but of course they had to hear Carl and Shane's gunshots. Now they're coming towards the farm. We gotta figure something out. Daryl and Glenn went back to the house to see if Rick and the others made it back, but they didn't. While Rick and Carl are on their way back, and Carl does ask a good question, asking, how'd Shane turn into a walker? Rick's just about to tell him what Jenner told us back in season 1, but of course he holds it until the very end. Because Rick sees all the walkers behind them, and so does Daryl and everyone at the farm. Rick and Carl end up making it into the barn, while Herschel and all the others are here to fight for the farm and not giving up on it. Back with Rick, he does have a plan. He gets all the walkers to come inside and pours gasoline all over the barn, and then gets Carl to light it. It burns up all the walkers, attracting more of the walkers to make sure they get burnt and showing everybody else that they're there. The kid that Herschel's been taking care of at his house actually comes to save Rick and Carl, but it comes with the cost of his life. Glenn's riding with Maggie in her car, shooting as many walkers as they can, and so is Andrea and T-Dog right behind them in a truck. Then you got Herschel shooting a shotgun like he's got the unlimited ammo glitch of GTA 5. They can't wait any longer, so it's time to move away from the farm so everybody gets running. Until one of Herschel's daughters gets grabbed, and Beth would have got grabbed too, but lucky for her, Lori pulls her hand away and saves her just in time. T-Dog and Andrea stop to save Lori and Carol, and then Andrea gets jumped by a walker trying to save Carol, so everybody thinks that Andrea died. Meaning that T-Dog, Beth, and Lori take off without Carol. Or Andrea, like, what? Even Andrea's thinking the same thing, and she does not want to get left. Now with Glenn and Maggie, they are literally trapped by walkers everywhere, so their only choice is to leave the farm. Herschel wants to stand his ground, but Rick finds him, so they're getting going. Rick, Herschel, and Carl take his car. And sadly, Andrea gets left by herself, and nobody knows about her, so she takes the guns and goes. The place is gone, the farm is overrun, and Daryl's about to leave until he hears Carol screaming. He goes to pick her up on her motorcycle, and they get out of there. Daytime hits, so with no other choice, Glenn has one more plan. Rick, Herschel, and Carl pull up to where they left Sophia, which is the best place to go, because everyone literally knows where this is, so this would be a perfect spot for everybody to meet back up. That's the thing about Apocalypse, there's no phones, no nothing, nobody can communicate with each other. Carl wants to wait on all the others to see if any of them end up coming back, especially his mom. Rick then tells him that the problem is that if a horde comes, they will die. T-Dog, Lori, and Beth are going to the coast until Lori's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna walk if you don't turn around. Walkers are starting to approach the highway, so Rick ends up telling Carl that they're gonna have to go and leave his mom. So they're about to move till they hear a motorcycle. Yeah, the whole group found each other on the road. So now the only people in our group is Rick, Carl, and Herschel, Daryl and Carol, Glenn and Maggie, and T-Dog, Lori, and Beth. So Herschel got to keep 2 of his daughters at least. So let's hold on to what we got and push on. They say they need to go back for Andrea to see if she's there, but Rick says if she's not here right now, then she's probably just dead. But is he wrong? She's actually surviving somehow. So sometime on the road, everybody ends up running out of gas because we don't have gas to spare. We're gonna find a place to set up for home for the night. Glenn says him and Maggie can go out for resources, but Rick says nobody is leaving and they need to find a shelter somewhere because somewhere is safe for them. Then while they're going to this building to set up a camp, they end up asking a juicy question. What happened with Randall and Shane? Because Randall's neck was snapped, but he turned to a walker. And finally, Rick says what Jenner told him back at the CDC. They are all infected. Everyone in the world that breathes in the air gets infected. So now no matter how you die, you come back as a walker. If it's not the brain, it doesn't matter. Rick actually thought that Jenner was lying until he ended up seeing some of the people coming back from just wounds. And now that Rick said that, people are starting to feel really really uneasy with it. Lori goes to give him a little love hug, and then he tells her that he killed Shane. He says that he kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing him and threatened his life to the last second, and he came at him with intent to kill, so Rick ended up killing him. Craziest part is Rick's kind of happy that it's over, but Lori doesn't know how to take it, so it doesn't look like they're going to be talking anytime soon. Andrew's still running through the woods for her life throughout a whole day, like W her. Until a walker almost gets the grab on her, but somebody saves her with a katana. And 2 walkers with no arms and chains? I guess and I hope we find out more with these 2 next season. For now, our group are sitting at a campfire getting cozy, while some people are trying to leave the team because they don't want to be under the leadership of Rick. People keep getting to talking, so it ticks off Rick really bad. And he says the reason that most of them are still alive is because of him. If they want to go out, then they can go out and die. Make their own choice, but if they want to survive, then they need to survive together. Because Rick knows there is a place they can call home. And as the camera distance out, a couple miles away is a prison. Oh, we're about to get the best season ever. And I can't wait to see y'all then, and that's how we wrap up Season 2.